David's memories of his father are stronger than steel. Son of Milton and Patty Osario, he reminisces on the good times he had with his dad as a child.
He was a strong guy, an imposing guy. He was, like 6'1", 6'2", and he was healthy. He was at a healthy weight. It's about 200. He was the jock in the family, and he liked one-on-one sports. That's why he liked hammer throwing. He liked discus and things like that. So we used to go to these universities, University of Maryland and stuff, and he would throw the hammer around and things. My mom was more of a meek person. She was kind of like a church lady, like to, be more quiet. My dad was always, he seemed assertive. He knew when we would travel together in the city, he knew what streets to go on. He knew what he was doing and how to get it. He started several businesses. My parents were divorced, and it's a complicated story, but basically my mom took me to South America to live with her parents for a while, and we came back. I was born here, but I went there to live with them. We came back, and my dad was still here. He worked for the embassy, the Argentinian embassy. One of the first times he came to see me, we went to the DC Zoo, and I'll never forget the day. It was fall. We went to the cafeteria at the zoo, and he bought me a hamburger there. And normally my mom would get me McDonald's hamburgers, but the hamburgers at the zoo, they had the sesame seeds, and I never saw those before, and I would just pick them off. And I thought it was such a big deal back then to see the sesame seeds on there, but it's so minor now.
What David remembers most is watching his father perform hammer throws at the University of Maryland.
For my dad, this was an interesting place. He always wanted to study here, and life kind of got him caught up, and he never did end up studying here, but he did. As an athlete, he would come here and throw hammers over here, and I remember a lot of times coming over here, I didn't understand the sport at all, but I understood what he always would joke around that I had to gain weight, I had to be bigger to throw it like him. So as a kid, he would always joke about that.
David would soon learn that the strong and witty man he watched growing up would be fighting a battle that required more than just physical strength.
He looked like he lost weight. He looked older, a lot older. His hair was kind of, he always had a big full head of hair like I do, and his hair was kind of falling out. It was thinning, and his body language was more, it was smaller. It was you could tell that there was something, not just mentally, but physically. He was almost like a skeleton. I remember that I never saw him that way before. He'd always give me a big hug and say, hey, I love you, and hold me for a second. But when he was depressed, after I heard that he had this depression thing, he wouldn't look at me. He would stand kind of far, had a distance from me, and would look at the ground, and was very meek, and not even, it wasn't even just an issue of not having eye contact, but even his face would just be downcast and almost like he was ashamed of something. And he wouldn't approach me. He just sat there and said hello from a couple steps down. And it was shocking. I felt like it wasn't the same person. The guy I saw would barely speak, and he shocked me. I actually I went to see a therapist about that too myself, because it affected me a lot.
But even after fighting his own battles with his dad's depression, David was not done receiving bad news.
It was a Saturday, and I received a text from my half-sister. Just a very blunt text that said, your father has been shot. We don't know what's going on. She was saying, don't go there yet until you could find out what's going on. And later on, that caused a huge rift in the family, because they feel that I should have ran over there to figure out what was going on. My mom was looking out, I guess, more for my safety. She said, call the police, see what's going on there. She didn't want something to happen to me. I had just lost my grandparents a couple years before, and that was really hard because I lived with them for a while. Then my dad dying was definitely the closest. So I was in shock. I thought maybe could this be some kind of joke or some kind of mistake? I wouldn't do that to someone. I wouldn't text somebody that their father died. But maybe it shows the relationship that we had. Maybe it wasn't as close as I thought.
With no real answers from police on why the situation with his father happened, David is now searching to lawyers to investigate this case further in the future. He is now left with just the memories he holds dear of his dad.
I'll always remember my dad as the person that he was when I remember him as a kid. The pillar of strength he was, and I'll always look up to him as that. He was always a very strong, powerful guy. And in my mind, no matter what happened at the end, he's gonna be that to me.